Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know what? Earlier today I made a video on Golovkin against Chris Eubank. A fight that I thought was better than advertised, right? And apparently, while I was making that video, news broke that Kell Brook, the welterweight champion, is actually going to challenge Golovkin for his middleweight belt. Let me congratulate Kell Brook. This is old school. This is Henry Armstrong, right? This is old school, right? A guy moving up in weight. In fact, here he's moving up one traditional weight class, two current weight classes, right? Because he's bypassing super welter, right? Junior middle, right? I give Kell Brook a lot of credit here. Now, a lot of people are excited about this fight. Let me say this. I think there are two ways to play this, right? The first, if I had to pick a side, I'd take the middleweight champion. I'd take Golovkin. The second way to play it is method of victory. I don't see this fight going the distance. I think both guys have a shot at a KO, right? Because you're getting considerably better odds on the Kell Brook side of the play, why not hedge Golovkin by KO with Kell Brook simply to win the fight? But just understand, I don't see how this fight makes it to the later rounds, right? I don't see how this fight, let's say, makes it to the 10th round, right? The championship rounds. I would expect someone to get knocked out, right? Now, let's talk about this. If you believe Kell Brook has a shot, then you likely see this fight as the second coming of Leonard Hagler, right? Leonard, much lighter on his feet than Marvin Hagler, takes on an absolute terror at middleweight, right? Marvin Hagler was a guy who, like Golovkin, was willing to get hit to land his shots, right? That's Marvin Hagler trading with Thomas Hearns, right? Hagler was confident in his offensive skills and was prepared to trade with you and maul you, right? Dominant middleweight champion. And there was Leonard picking his spots, much faster hand speed, throwing combinations from the outside, stealing rounds by flurrying late in rounds, right? Moving away from Marvin Hagler, forcing Hagler to come to him, piling up points, right? Sticking a jab out there, framing his hand speed so we could see it, right? Here's the problem. I don't think this is Leonard Hagler, right? First, let me say this. Even Leonard Hagler has some troubled scoring, right? I thought Ray Leonard won the fight. Then a friend said to me, look at the body shots, right? I was caught up in the moment. A friend said, look at the body shots. How do you take a champion's middleweight belt when the champion's landing that many heavy body shots? So I went back and I watched that fight. Right? No one roots for Goliath. At the time, Marvin Hagler was viewed as Goliath. Ray was viewed as a guy coming back to the sport, right? Fighting out of his weight class, as Kell Brook is right here. But when you look at the body punches, you realize that, hey, Hagler does land a hell of a lot of body punches in that fight, right? You also look at Hagler himself. Now keep in mind, Hagler, I'm convinced, I have no proof, but my eyes and looking at fights, Hagler fought as a southpaw, but really is right-handed, in my opinion. Right? So Hagler, first off, because he's fighting out of his natural state, because he's fighting as a southpaw, he didn't really move that well, right? Because just like you have a dominant hand, you have a dominant leg. Soccer players know this, right? Hagler is a bit inverted. But Hagler himself fights the first 2 rounds against Ray Leonard as a righty, right? He's shifting it up. He gives away the first 2 rounds, right? Sets the tone for the fight. Understand, you're a judge. If Goliath comes in and looks like Goliath early, then you say, well, David has no shot, right? But if Goliath gives away the first 2 rounds, and David's one of the most loved fighters in boxing history, right? Make no mistake, Ray Leonard really is an Ali-type figure. In terms of the connection, a Manny Pacquiao-type figure. These guys don't come around that often, right? Ray Leonard was loved. You can imagine the crowd goes nuts when Ray wins the first 2 rounds. Judges start to get caught up in the moment. Now here, Golovkin's a righty fighting as a righty. In my opinion, Golovkin uses spacing much better than Marvin Hagler. Hagler preferred short punches, right? Hagler wanted to get close to you. Hagler to me is a bit like Joe Louis, right? The punch didn't have to travel that far, right? Hagler wanted to get close to you and wanted to beat you up. Golovkin's different, right? Golovkin's a long puncher to me, not a short puncher, right? Golovkin's a guy who you could be across the ring. He has ring coverage. He can hurt you from distance. Look at the Martin Murray fight, right? Murray's excellent defensively. Murray's backing away. You can almost feel the power in Golovkin's shots, even as Murray's getting hit from distance behind a guard, right? So, Ray Leonard against Marvin Hagler could stay outside and know he was outside Hagler's power range, Hagler's wheelhouse. Here, if Kell Brook stays outside, he's in Golovkin's wheelhouse. I've seen Golovkin get tested up close, right? I like to mention it, Kasim Uma. That fight is the most revealing fight on Golovkin, right? Guy coming up on Golovkin. If you're going to beat Golovkin, you have to be the hunter, not the hunted. I haven't seen Golovkin look bad when a guy tries to beat him from the outside, tries to use boxing skills to get him to open up, right? That doesn't work, in my opinion. I think Kell Brook is going to try to fight a stay-away fight from Golovkin. There's going to be some space between the two men, and I think that's going to put him at risk. I think Golovkin can throw a punch from 3 feet away from you and badly hurt you. Right? Badly hurt you. Let me say this too. You know, Ray Leonard against Hagler, there are times where he's pinned up against the ropes, where he has to deal with Hagler inside. You know, Ray Leonard was a better inside fighter than Kell Brook. Now, I know people are going to say, hey, didn't Ray lose to Roberto Duran? Didn't Duran rough him up on the inside? Yeah, but that was Roberto Duran on the inside. Ray against most guys is decent on the inside. Look at Ray against Wilfred Benitez on the inside. Ray was decent on the inside, right? Ray against Tommy Hearns. It's Ray who wants to get on the inside in that fight at times. Right? And so, Kell Brook, by contrast, when you jump inside on Kell Brook, he grabs you, doesn't he? Isn't that the Shawn Porter fight? Right? Porter jumps inside. Kell Brook doesn't shorten his punches and then start to go to work on the inside. No, he grabs Shawn Porter on the inside. Now let me challenge the public here. Name me the Gennady Golovkin fight where he allows an opponent to grab him to death. Folks, good luck finding that fight. Golovkin, even though Golovkin frequently has guys who are clinging to life, who are semi-conscious in front of him, who are trying to find a way to make it past the next 30 seconds in the fight, trying to clear their head, trying to buy time, even though that's a staple of Golovkin fights. You'll notice that Golovkin is smart. This is an Abel Sanchez thing. He always seems to have a hand close to him. So as you reach to grab him, he can swole up, move his hands away, move himself to the side just enough where you aren't able to grab him. Right? Kell Brook cannot fight the Shawn Porter fight against this opponent. It's very hard to grab Golovkin. I mean, very. Right? So I personally feel that rather than Leonard Hagler or Hagler-Leonard, right, his best shot of a victory, Kell Brook's, is his fight against Frankie Gavin, a guy who I think's more talented, better than advertised guy, right? Frankie Gavin, he's a master at angles. He's good, right? Kell Brook destroyed him, destroyed his construct, because Kell Brook is so fast and hits so hard when he's throwing short punches that Kell Brook just countered him to death, right? Pops in, leads with power shots, hits Frankie Gavin, flush, right? Takes him out of his game. Golovkin is open at times, just like Marvin Hagler was, right? He is open at times. He's a fighter, right? If Kell Brook can find a way to somehow fill that gap with a short haymaker, right? Because Kell Brook hits a lot harder than people realize. If Kell Brook can come in with short punches, if he looks at film of Golovkin and can find a tell that will enable him to dodge Golovkin's punches, which do come at an angle, right? Golovkin's not the straightest puncher in the world apart from his jab, right? If he could find a way to catch Golovkin when Golovkin is open, maybe he hurts Golovkin. If he gets Golovkin on his back foot, Kell Brook's blessed with hand speed. The fight is in Kell Brook's backyard. Maybe Kell Brook can close the show. Right? Let me say this too. Really bad optics for Kell Brook. Really bad optics. We saw Kell Brook against Carson Jones, the first fight. I know Kell Brook avenged himself. Okay, great. But the first fight, that's Carson Jones coming forward for several rounds, unabated. Right? He just continues to come forward on Kell Brook. Right? Brook is moving away, hoping for a spot to land, right? Hoping for a spot to land, moving away on his back foot for much of that fight. This fight, you're going to have one of the biggest punchers pound for pound in the sport. In fact, both of these guys hit hard. But with Golovkin, the crowd knows he hits hard. Right? You're going to have Golovkin coming in using distance. Golovkin's a master at it. Doesn't throw a lot of punches. Right? He's going to come in, he's going to look at angles. If he gets Kell Brook to back up like Carson Jones did, I think Kell Brook's going to be in a bad bit of trouble. Right? Because the optic's going to be the bigger middleweight champion hunting down the welterweight champion, who, whatever their weights on fight night, we're going to view as the smaller guy. Right? I was more bullish on Amir Khan beating Canelo than I am on Kell Brook having a chance against Golovkin. Right? Kell Brook, too, isn't a guy who, in my opinion, is going to be comfortable just hovering around the pocket. Right? There are hints in that Daniel Gill fight that maybe a guy staying close to Golovkin who is turning him might have a chance. Right? I don't think Kell Brook is that kind of fighter. I think Kell Brook prefers space himself. Right? If it's a fight where the fighters are separated and there's space between the two of them, neither guy is crowding the other, I like Golovkin. If it's a fight where Kell Brook is standing straight up, because he's not a guy who bends a lot at the waist. If Kell Brook comes in and he's standing straight up, and you know the plane at which to hit him from distance, I like Golovkin. Right? The only way to me Kell Brook has a chance is if he suddenly decides he's Sean Porter and tries to be sudden. Right? Doesn't move away from Golovkin's offense, but rather hopes to counter one of Golovkin's big shots. Right? I'm not sure if he's that guy. Right? Sean Porter, that kind of suddenness, that's a unique style. Kell Brook has the foot speed. Kell Brook has the punching power. I just don't think Kell Brook has tailored his game to do that. Right? Frankie Gavin doesn't have a big punch. So Kell Brook was able to linger closer to Frankie Gavin than I believe he's going to linger with regard to Golovkin. So, I'm one of those people who believes this fight's not going to go the distance. If I had one bet to make, I'd take the favorite Gennady Golovkin. Since I'm a gambler, I'm going to hedge this. Right? I don't expect it to go the distance, but they're giving me such spectacular odds. The odds are posted up on Odds Checker right now. Right? Golovkin is 1-7 to win the fight. Right? To try to beat the casino and get better odds, and I know Kell Brook has never been KO'd. Right? The hedge I like is Golovkin by KO. Hedged with Kell Brook simply to win. Right? I don't expect the fight to go to a decision. But I'm getting such long odds on Kell Brook, hell, I might as well get the decision as part of the bet on Kell Brook. I believe Brook's only chance is to fight the fight he did against Frankie Gavin. Lead with power shots, not box with Golovkin, who has the better jab than him. Right? Lead with power shots, hope to hurt Golovkin. In other words, that Daniel Gill fight. You remember, Gill lands first, Golovkin's next punch ends the fight. Right? Kell Brook needs to reverse that. He needs to have Golovkin throw first, somehow find a way to dodge it. Then he needs to come in with the power. Let me say this too. I believe Abel Sanchez, Golovkin's trainer, who in many interviews has said the toughest opponent for Golovkin to date was Curtis Stevens, understands that the kind of guy who would give Golovkin problems would be a Rocky Marciano, Joe Frazier type guy, right? A guy who's shorter than him, who can come up to here and throw real power shots, right? That's the kind of guy I believe Abel Sanchez thinks gives his fighter problems, right? Curtis Stevens just doesn't have the foot speed to really be, let's say, a Joe Frazier, right? Think Mike Tyson, how he beat taller heavyweights, right? Guy comes up, he's throwing uppercuts, he's a problem here. Dwight Braxton, right? Dwight Cowie, earlier generation, right? Guy comes in, small guy, dynamite, right? Comes in, is giving you problems and stuff like that, right? I don't think Sanchez believes that a guy who stays outside, who stands upright, who's trying to use hand speed, who's trying to outbox you, is a problem for his fighter. Because sooner or later, over 12 rounds, Golovkin is going to land. Right? Trust me, we know Golovkin's not going to be trying to hide or avoid action. Right? Golovkin's like Marvin Hagler. He's in the ring for action. Right? Golovkin really is an action figure, isn't he? Right? He's going to be patient. He's going to wait for opportunities. Then he's going to go to work. Right? Now, I know the boxing hardcore knows that Abel Sanchez in interviews has said that he modeled Golovkin after Julio Cesar Chavez. And I know some people are going to say, hey, look, didn't Pernell Whitaker give Chavez all he could handle? Why can't Kell Brook fight the fight Pernell Whitaker did? Well, let's face it. Pernell Whitaker's a different fighter than Kell Brook, right? Defensive master. Bends at the waist. Would bend perpendicular so punches are flying over his head, right? Pernell's the kind of guy who could stand right in front of you and not get hit by any shots. Look at the Pernell-Oscar De La Hoya fight. Kell Brook, by contrast, is an offensive fighter who uses his legs for defense, not angles and bends and all this other stuff, right? So I'm going to disagree with folks who believe that you could stay outside against Golovkin. I haven't seen that work. Nor have I seen Kell Brook have the patience to just hover around the pocket like, let's say, maybe a Daniel Geale, who got destroyed by Golovkin, but a Daniel Geale has done against other opponents. Daniel Geale, Anthony Mundine, the rematch, right? I don't think Kell Brook has that level of patience. I think Kell Brook has been blessed with speed. He's an outsized puncher. He's really a puncher, folks. That's what he does best, right? He throws big-time short punches, right? So he's outside, guys miss, he comes in, he throws a 1-foot punch that completely destabilizes you, right? He mixes it up with combinations and stuff like that. Good luck doing that against Golovkin. I think Golovkin's game is set up where he's waiting to counter you from the outside. I think Martin Murray's a better defensive fighter than Kell Brook, right? If Golovkin lands, it's over, right? Ray Leonard could stay dry by staying away from Marvin Hagler. Right here, we're going to figure out that as you stay away from Golovkin, you're actually moving into his hot zone. Right? I like the middleweight champion. I'll hedge the play with the welterweight champion simply to win the fight. I like the middleweight champion by KO. That's why the bet's possible, right? By KO. Hedged with the welterweight champion simply to win the fight. In other words, I like Golovkin by KO hedged with Kell Brook to win the fight. That's how I see this one. Let me hear from you, because I'm sure we're going to get different opinions here. I'm sure I'm going to hear Golovkin's flat-footed, Golovkin is slow, and stuff like that, right? Just understand, Golovkin destroys guys. Didn't he destroy Ishida? Guys who think they can stick and move from the outside, right? Let me say this too. I know some geniuses here are going to say, isn't this Ali Liston? Right? Let's be real for a moment here. Understand, Ali, different fighter than Kell Brook. Kell Brook's really more of a power puncher than Ali was. Right? Ali was a stick and move jabber. Right? With exquisite timing. Kell Brook isn't a jabber. Right? Kell Brook's really a guy who hurts you, doesn't he? Look at his KO percentage. Right? I don't see Kell Brook dancing for 12 rounds. That's not his style. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.